Hello ladies and gentlemen, Reginald Scott here, and I just wanted to share with you my love for these particular tyres, which I think are like the ultimate commuting tyres really. They're the ones I use on all my bikes at the moment, and they are Continental Grand Prix 4-season tyres. These are in 23mm. A lot of people now are switching up to 24 and 25 because of the extra ride comfort that they give, but unfortunately I've still got plenty of these 23mm, so I'll be using those until they wear out. So this is what the tread looks like on the tyre. It's not very invasive, it doesn't stick out much, they're actually quite smooth, but as someone told me many years ago, it's not got anything to do with the kind of tread that you've got on your tyre, it's all about the compound. And the compound on these tyres is really, really great. It's extremely sticky. As you can hear, it's kind of squeaking on my fingers there. It's very hard wearing and it's superb in the wet. I really do trust my life with these tyres. I'll throw them into corners much faster than I would any other tyres that I've ever had. And there have been cases in the past where I've switched tyres briefly because I bought a new bike, and unfortunately as a result of that I've had accidents and immediately gone out and bought these again, simply because I feel like I can rely on them. So as I say, they're very hard wearing, great in the wet. They've got really good puncture resistance. I hardly ever get punctures. I recently, on these ones here, which are again the same kind of tyre, but these are kind of worn in just a little bit better. The back tyre is obviously worn more than the front tyre, because that's where all the power goes down. I ran over glass on these twice this week. Same patch of glass actually, I was really stupid. I forgot that it was there and I went over it again, and still no punctures. The only time I ever suffered a puncture with these tyres is a few years ago when I was on my way to work, and a piece of metal which was about that long kind of curved and had a spike either end, a little bit thinner than a wheel spoke, actually went through the tyre and gave me multiple punctures. But it was incredibly slim and sharp, and I honestly don't think any tyre would have been able to stop it. So that's the only time I've ever had a puncture with these, but as you can hear, they're really hard, really pumped up, and not really much gets through them. I've gone through hawthorns with these, you know, when people have been cutting the hedges at the sides of fields and you get those horrible sharp thorns. I've gone through glass, I've gone through all sorts of stuff, and these things just keep on going and don't give me any punctures, which from a commuting tyre is like really just what you want. Not only that, but these things are incredibly light. If you go on the Continental website, you can look at all the statistics on these tyres, and I know a lot of riders ride the GatorSkins by Continental, which they swear by and say that are really good, and again, great puncture resistance, and you know, good grip. For a commuting tyre, I think they're just about as good as you can get. They might not be any good as a racing tyre, because they're obviously going to be heavier than a racing tyre, and the rolling resistance isn't going to be as good. But still, for people like you or I who maybe are going to work on a bike, they're really not much better you can do than these, in my opinion, that is. What more can I say about them, really? Just go buy a pair and I don't think you'll be disappointed. So there you go. Thank you for watching my little review. I hope it was helpful to you when selecting your next set of tyres, and as always, stay safe. Oh yeah, I've thought of a way of demonstrating how good these tyres are. I don't know whether it's going to be very scientific, but it kind of it will give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to set the camera down on the floor, and then I'm going to lean the bike on the wooden floor and show you how much grip the tyres have got. So if I just stick the camera there, get rid of that one, see if it will roll. And it goes, fantastic. So this is a polished wooden floor, and I'm going to lean on this bike at an acute angle. Okay, I'm now leaning with my full body weight. I'll even put my arms down. And this bike's gripping the polished wooden floor, which at this angle is pretty impressive. Let's see how far I can take it before it fails. Okay, still going. Whoa. Okay, that's about there. So, how far was that to being almost flat on the floor? This is me leaning on the bike. So that's how far you'd have to be going, leaning into a corner on a wooden floor before these tyres would give out. I think that's pretty impressive. Like I say, I trust my life with these things. They've never really let me down. So yeah, next time you're selecting a commuting tyre, try Continental 4 Seasons. Brilliant tyres, absolutely brilliant. Just one teeny tiny negative point I would make about these, and it is really the only negative point, is their cost. You really can't find these for much less than £30 each, which means you're spending £60 to get 2 new tyres for your bike. I think that's quite a lot of money, but when you take into account their quality and their reliability, their puncture resistance and their all-weather capabilities, maybe it's not so much of a rip-off. Actually, it's probably very well reasonably priced. It's just that it can be difficult to make that choice to spend that kind of money on your bike or on bike equipment. But I suppose tyres are really important. So I bite the bullet and I do pay the money. I realise that perhaps they're a little bit expensive for some people, but they do last a really long time. So maybe you can sort of take that into account when you think about the inconvenience of having to, get a new bike every time you crash because you bought cheap tyres, or get a new tyre because it got a puncture, because they weren't very puncture resistant, whereas these things are, you see. So yeah, 30 quid each. Not cheap, but maybe worthwhile. Or at least I seem to think so. So thank you for watching.